Please welcome Dr. Nicole Morris, Interim Associate Dean, Champlain College Online, and Professor in the Stiller School of Business, who will present the honorary degree recipient, Garrett Graff.
Garrett Graff, as a nationally renowned author, journalist, historian, you have deepened our understanding of some of our country's most pivotal, historic, and current events. Through your prolific, award-winning work, you contribute fresh insights, provide context, unravel complexities, and illuminate the implications on our world today. You lift up and weave together many voices and perspectives, arriving at a unified narrative and consensus of truth that brings us into the moment and shields new light on how events unfolded. As a media and technology pioneer, your work transcends media formats, adapting new ways information is consumed. You broke ground as the first blogger admitted to the White House press briefing. You have contributed to provide influential leadership around the world of technology in today's world as the Director of Cyber Initiatives at the Aspen Institute and as the founding director at the Aspen Institute Cybersecurity and Technology Program. You have generously shared your knowledge and expertise with others through your teaching, community involvement, board membership, and even a book list begun during the pandemic that is a required syllabus for all curious readers. Champlain College honors your significant contributions to our collective knowledge and the learning opportunities you have created through your powerful work. Through your leadership of thought, your sharing of wisdom, and your quest for truth, you are truly making a difference in our world. Garrett Graff, I invite you to join us on the stage with Dr. Jana Herrick-Phelps.
Garrett Graff, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Champlain College, I am pleased to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters honoris causa on this 14th day of May, 2022. Congratulations from the entire Champlain College community.
Good afternoon, graduates. It's a good thing you chose to go to one of the northernmost schools in one of the northernmost states. Otherwise, it might have been hot during your spring commencement. President Finney, incoming President Hernandez, Champlain trustees, faculty, staff, graduates, families, friends, and my family. Thank you for this honor. Congratulations, graduates, for getting here. You made it. I'm sure it wasn't easy. I've seen firsthand how hard students like you work. During the 7 years I taught at Georgetown University in its own school of professional studies, my students balanced families, careers, side jobs, caring for aging parents, and all of the other seriously unfun things that come with true adult responsibilities. My first and only piece of concrete advice today grows out of my own teaching experience. Make sure you connect with all of your professors from Champlain on LinkedIn. You have no idea the pride that your teachers will feel for you for the rest of their lives and yours. I haven't taught since 2015, but thanks to LinkedIn, I see my former students and their successes almost every day. One of my former students is serving as the top military spokesperson in the Middle East. Another this spring made partner at her law firm, and a third partner at her consulting firm. I see them year after year achieve their own American dreams. Graduating today is a remarkable testament to your own perseverance. It is hard to imagine a more challenging period in the last 100 years to have gotten done what you have accomplished. You did grad school on what video gamers would call boss level. Many days of the last 2 years, it has seemed hard enough to just get out of bed, let alone accomplish anything meaningful. We've all spent the last 2 years showing up each day the best that we can. I know I've spent the last 2 years answering the question, how are you, with some version of between very poor and fair, which is to say every other day of the pandemic. Yesterday, my 8-month-old son came with me to a Zoom, and I've certainly handed my iPad to my daughter so that I could write one more email. I know all of you have been through similar experiences in the last 2 years, and probably statistically much worse. All while you've been trying to earn the right to sit here today and call yourself graduates. Amid all of that, though, you've pursued a higher education and a journey of personal betterment that places you firmly in the proudest tradition of American history. There is arguably no quintessentially more American trait than persistence and self-improvement. There is almost surely an Alexis de Tocqueville quote saying such, but frankly, I've always found people who quote de Tocqueville insufferable, so I didn't bother to find one myself. Nevertheless, making ourselves individually and collectively better, and the promise today being better than yesterday, and tomorrow better still, is the fundamental DNA of our nation. The American dream is a dream of a better tomorrow, one wealthier, more just, and more equal. We are a hopeful and restless people. Opportunity and improvement is the secular religion of America. Our national emblem may be a bald eagle, but our true national mascot is Horatio Alger. And around the world, if you don't know anything else about our country, you know about the American dream. We were, as a nation, founded in meritocracy and the sense that I'm not born into the position where I have to stay. This is a place that you come to dream big. It is a place for bold, hairy, audacious goals, embodied in the very motto of your school today. Adiamos, let us dare. There's a reason that today, even as the world grows more fraught and the international order feels ever more unstable, that there is no competing equivalent of the Chinese dream or the Russian dream. Even amid our own dark political clouds here at home, America, our country, our people, our economy, and our educational system still stands alone as a beacon of hope and opportunity. This drive seems to be simply part of the genetic makeup of the restless pilgrims and hopeful workers who left behind their homelands in Asia, Europe, and elsewhere to travel to this new world over a dozen generations. There can be no doubt that if the United States is famous for its get up and go, that is because Americans are descended from those who got up and came, explains economic historian John Steele Gordon. It is easy to lose track of how remarkable this land of hope and opportunity and improvement was at its founding, and how remarkable it and we remain today. The United States is a remarkable project about improvement, perseverance, unparalleled in world history. As you have been hard at work, graduates, thinking about how to make your own future greater, America has spent these years having a fraught and difficult conversation, one that has ranged from the murder of George Floyd to the steps of the Capitol on January 6th, about what America wants to be when it grows up as a country. America is not and never has been a perfect country. We've had shameful chapters of our own national history. We have not always lived up to our best ideals. But living in America is not about saying that we're always right. And loving America doesn't require burying or turning away from awful chapters in our own history. Whether that's slavery, our government's treatment of indigenous people, Jim Crow, or our internment of Japanese Americans in World War II. Recognizing all of those episodes doesn't mean that we don't love our country, because loving America is about saying that we, each of us and all of us, can be better. What makes this country worth fighting for is our collective and individual capacity for improvement. We can make ourselves better, we can make each other better, we can make our country better. The entire history of our country is about recognizing and expanding rights that have been previously denied or ignored. To say that a right isn't one because it hasn't been historically fundamentally misreads the entire history of our founding and everything since. Our founders were not perfect. They were creatures of their time, constrained in their thinking that were in ways that seem unimaginable to us today. But their imagination nevertheless soared beyond that of any other group of people in the world to that moment. They existed on the far edges of Western civilization, obscure, non-aristocrats, and yet somehow, in spite of that, or because of it, they were able to imagine a government more just, more honorable, more inclusive, and more fair than anything that had come before. The founders fought the first successful war for colonial independence in the modern era, and then went on to found the first nation-sized republic. The United States was founded on a set of beliefs, and not as other nations, not as all other nations until then, on a common ethnicity, language, or religion. They opened up the world to the non-elite, a strike against the aristocracy. America instead created its own elite, based on merit and talent. Yes, at the time, it was only open to white males, but it was remarkable still for that age for its egalitarianism. Washington would have never made it past a major in the British Army. Alexander Hamilton, an orphan immigrant, would have never risen. No one would have ever known or cared about his brilliance. Benjamin Franklin would have languished in the working class. The founders were, to a stunning degree, first-generation gentlemen. Of the 99 signers of the Declaration, only 8 had fathers who were known to have attended college. The cause of America is in great measure the cause of all mankind, Thomas Paine wrote. We have it in our power to begin the world over again. This does not mean that our politics were necessarily polite or pleasant or even that progress is a linear march. Today's a mess, sure, but it's worth remembering how messy it was back then, too. We think of the founders as one team, but they weren't. John Adams was deeply bitter about his legacy. He saw Thomas Jefferson as stealing the historical spotlight that rightly belonged to him. In his mind, the Declaration of Independence, the document that we all remember, we hold these truths to be self-evident. That was just one day, one moment, one line. Adams, he fought for years. He cajoled, he orated, he twisted arms. Jefferson, he just wrote the thing down at the end. Jefferson, meanwhile, was horrified by the existence of the Constitution. He read it for the first time while posted in France and argued it was unnecessary. Sure, it's easy to say that today's politicians suck, but it's worth remembering that the politicians of that era thought their peers did too. As president, Washington's first attempt to seek advice and counsel of the Senate was an awkward failure. He stormed out of the Senate chamber, never to return. Ben Franklin and John Adams had an intense mutual antipathy. While pretending to work together smoothly in public, they engaged in mutual vicious character assassination behind closed doors. And of course, there was Hamilton and Jefferson, the original feud. Differences aside together, though, they gave us this incredible collective gift. Unlike in Europe, where sovereigns were established to be sovereign, all-powerful and decisive, government in the United States was designed to have multiple centers of power. It wasn't an ultimate arbiter. It was the framework for an ongoing argument. It's a remarkable accomplishment to disagree civilly as a society and as a political system. It was new then, and it remains unique today. French, Russian, Chinese, and many other revolutions all ended instead in torrents of bloodshed and waves of reprisals. Instead, America's system of political parties, as much as we may hate them and decry the partisanship today, institutionalized channels for ongoing debate. And as historian Joseph Ellis wrote, that structure eventually permitted dissent to be regarded not as a treasonable act, but as a legitimate voice in an endless argument. We are an imperfect union, but one that gets better. And we set up a system of government with dueling power structures to push us always to be better. There is no golden age of American democracy. Princeton professor Dr. Imani Perry, in her new book this year, South to America, points out that it's impossible to start a history at America's beginning because there isn't one beginning to the United States. There are so many birthdays, she writes, 14, 92, 15, 20, 16, 19, 1776, 1804, 1865, 1954, 1964, 1965. And there are others I could add. 1870, 1875, 1920, 1973, 1990, 2016. Epochal moments of our Cambrian explosion of democracy, when the political earth shifted, rights expanded, and our country became more equal, more just, and more free. Generation after generation, we have seen the march of American ideals and the expansion of that American dream. For Asians and Black people, for Irish and Italians, for Jewish people, for women, for gays, for Americans living with disabilities, and for transgender people. We forget how new and how fragile so many of these rights are. Heather McGhee, in her book last year on America's history of structural racism, The Sum of Us, recalls that her parents were the first generation of Black Americans to live full adult lives with explicitly racist barriers lowered enough for them to even glimpse that American dream. In researching my latest book, A History of Watergate, I was amazed at the casual misogyny and sexism that permeated our national politics then. And here in Vermont, it's easy to forget how radical Governor Howard Dean was not that long ago for embracing civil unions. But that's how we all get better, a little bit at a time, a half step here and a half step there. We are not there yet. And it's worth remembering that rights once won don't always stay won the first time. It's up to all of us to carry those torches forward. America's founding still continues. Our collective hope, though, is that tomorrow America will be more free, more open, and more equal than it was yesterday. You sitting here today as graduates are part of that promise. Your today is better than your yesterday. And it's all of our tasks to ensure together that tomorrow is better still. That is America's most fundamental ideal. So rejoice and embrace today, take Sunday off, and then get up Monday and work to take our country and our world forward. This education you have worked so hard to achieve amid such an awful time is an incredible gift from your teachers, peers, your families, and those who have come before you. And now it's your turn to make a difference. Because the truth of the American dream is that it's not complete until you have passed your dreams on to others, our collective dreams onto someone else, and carried it forward to the next generation.